And we've been joined by the publisher of The Political Economist, Mr. Ken Ubeche. Ken, morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's now afternoon, but we have been here since morning, so we didn't know when it turned to afternoon.
We haven't seen the sun.
We haven't seen the sun, so we're not completely aware it's afternoon yet, but it is afternoon. I'm sure you've been following the trends, the themes, the various things that people are talking about. And I guess maybe to just dive you into it or push you into it, if whichever you would like. One should begin about asking you of what you make of the electoral process up until the stage that we are now.
Yes, that's where we should be interrogating, especially the media, because I'm more concerned about the role of the media.
Absolutely.
In the entire process. And the media should be interrogating the process of the elections, not just announcing the outcomes, because outcomes, they take processes. And the electoral system is, I call it the cream of democracy. It's election. It's the creamer, actually. And it's supposed to be a festival, not a war. But how do you arrive at that outcome? Is that outcome predetermined outcome? Is the outcome allowed to happen? Is it organic? Or is it something projected by somebody and they work to the outcome? That is what the Nigerian media, I think for now, should be interrogating. And if you ask me, I will say that we have not done enough to bring the electoral actors to account to the Nigerian people. In this instance, the Independent National Electoral Commission, and then the adjunct staff they have hired. What have they done to produce that results that the media is now announcing? And if we begin to interrogate it, we also bring to them, to the fore, the very fact that democracy is governed by nothing but the rule of law, and the elections are governed by rules, laws, and mores. In the instant election that we're talking about, the presidential election and National Assembly elections, to what extent has INEC and all the actors conformed to the manual for this election? Because that's a manual. The Electoral Act 2022 is the manual for this election. And that Electoral Act is for instance now, it has become the ground norm for this particular election until we get another act. But for now, it governs this election. And I will say that the electoral actors have not conformed to the dictates, to the tenets, and the nuggets of the Electoral Act 2022. And that is where the media should begin to point out those things that the various actors have not done. I give you an instance. On the day of election, President Muhammadu Buhari voted in his Daura community. And he showed to the world who he voted for. The Electoral Act in section 122 talks about the secrecy of the ballot. I'm not supposed to know who Ladi voted for. I shouldn't know who Millicent voted for. And she shouldn't tell me who she voted for. But a sitting president who also signed this law, he signed into law, showcased who he voted for. And I saw another person, some other top politician, doing so. They wanted to patronize their parties, whatever that means, but you don't flout the law. Because if you look at that section 122 of the Electoral Act, it even spells the penalty for doing that. It talks about people, you can't vote by proxy these days, or like in the days of past, where somebody can take the electoral ballot paper and go out on print.
Let's quickly read it. Section 122.
Yes.
Every person in attendance at a polling unit, including every officer charged with the conduct of an election and his or her assistants, and every polling unit, polling agent and candidate in attendance at a polling unit, polling station, or at the collation center, as the case may be, shall maintain and aid in maintaining the secrecy of the voting. No person sub 2 in attendance at a polling booth under this section shall, except for some purpose authorized by law, communicate to any person information as to the name or number on the register of any voter who has or has not voted at the place of voting. 3. No person shall interfere with a voter casting his or her vote, or by any other means obtain or attempt to obtain in a polling unit information as to the candidate for whom a voter in that place is about to vote for or has voted for. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
I shouldn't know who you have voted for,
And
and
then
I
no
shouldn't know who
person
you want to vote for.
No person
Elect-
shall communicate at
yes.
any time to any other person information obtained in a polling unit
Yes.
as to the candidate to whom a voter is about to vote for or has voted for.
The most important part, subsection 4.
Any person acting contrary to the provisions of
penalty.
this section
Yes.
commits an offense
Oh, yes.
and is liable on conviction to a maximum fine of 100,000 naira or imprisonment for a term of 3 months or both. Okay, anyway.
I mean, the point is well. I mean, the point is well made. The point is well made. And the point you were making, Ken, is that that's part of the process.
Yes,
We're
it's
talking
part of
about
the
that
process
leads
that
to
we should interrogate,
outcomes
and the
that
media
we
ought to
should,
point out these things.
That is very, very instructive.
No. We should be. See, media is beyond informing. The role of the media is no longer, it's just beyond informing people. You should interpret it.
Educate.
You should educate the people, and you should also analyze.
We've been doing that, Ken.
Yeah, that's
if
what
you've been watching us since Friday,
no,
we've been doing that.
Of course, this is my darling station. Channels is prima donna as far as I'm concerned in terms of electoral analysis, because you are dispassionate. I'm very professional. But I'm saying that beyond that, every other media house should take this manual vis-a-vis the process. Begin to tell the public that this is wrong and this is right. It is when we begin to point out these things that we grow. All of us want to grow electorally.
Sorry, George, my sincere apologies.
Yeah.
Laddie, please don't crucify me for this question. But let me ask Mr. Ogbeche. If you find someone doing just this, that you said the president does and a number of people have done, and the police is around and says, we need to enforce this law, and the police begins to pick people who do that at a polling unit, what do you think the consequence would be?
No, there's nothing wrong with a police, but there are some people that are governed by immunity for now.
Yeah.
For instance, the president has immunity. But I'm saying that other people who don't have immunity.
That's the point that I'm making.
Yes.
Because someone actually, I think it was an Osazeuzi, said about this thing that you're talking about, that it is one thing to have the law. It's another thing to enforce the law in a way that will be seen to be fair to all concerned. So this is the law. Many people who contravened this law, acted contrary to this law in this process, know themselves as we speak. Now, how do we enforce this aspect of the law without seeming unfair?
Oh, very, very simple. You see, this issue of how to be fair in the eyes of the law is what has kept Nigeria stuttered, manacled to the stump of underdevelopment, even to the stump of primitivity. If you have a law, for crying out loud, we all watched Bill Clinton as a sitting president being interrogated by a Ken Star, being drilled every day. It was a movie for us. That was the most powerful president in the world. But he submitted himself to the law of the land. Everybody in Nigeria should submit himself to the law of the land. If you don't do that, you are not, forget democracy. You are not ready for democracy. It's about the rule of law. It doesn't matter who you are. Now, the president has immunity. Okay, I agree with that. You don't arrest him, he has immunity. But you can investigate somebody who has immunity and keep his file. When he loses that immunity, you can prosecute the person. That's the law. In the case of people that don't have immunity, why didn't the law act, the law enforcers?
I mean, even if we can argue that, in the case of the president or some of the others who indicated who they were voting for, as you said, whatever patronage reasons and so on. I mean, let's put that, and it comes back to the point Ayo made about being fair. The ones who actually showed their ballot papers for the purpose of payment, as evidence of payment, I mean, do they also fall under this?
Now, that payment is vote buying. Electoral Act, Section 22, you can go there. Section 22 talks about vote buying. Vote buying is an offense under the law. The buyer and the seller are both culpable. Go to Section 22 of the Electoral Act.
We've arrested many sellers, but I'm not aware that,
Jankara market.
we have arrested many sellers.
buyers.
No, many. Okay, sorry, yeah, many buyers, but we have not arrested any sellers.
seller.
So I guess it goes back to the implementation question that Ayo mentioned.
Let's go to
that is selective enforcement of the law.
Absolutely.
Well, any person who is in unlawful possession of any voter's card, whether used in the name of any voter or not, or sells or attempts to sell or offers to sell any voter's card, whether issued in the name of any voter or not, or buys or offers to buy any voter's card, whether on his own behalf or on behalf of any other person, commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine of not more than 500,000 naira or imprisonment not more than 2 years, or both.
So it's both the seller and the buyer.
Yes,
like he said now, we have arrested many buyers. But what about the masquerade selling it?
Yes, the people selling the votes.
Yes, people are selling this vote. And people send them to sell the votes.
It comes back to enforcement in a way that is, in a manner that is fair.
Millicent is our in-house counsel, so at least on this panel. So let us.
The investigations are ongoing to get the sellers, that they were on ground during the elections. We heard from CSO saying that vote buying in this election was low, was minimal.
Yeah, it was lower than it used to be.
And
maybe
isn't that progress? And this is saying
I don't think it's progress. I think it's because of Naira Crunch. There was cash scarcity. Let's not forget that.
We're being told that our democracy is evolving.
Ayo doesn't like that word.
Our democracy is evolving. Let's not that.
Well, you gave me a new word, metamorphosis.
Yes.
It's metamorphosis. Yes, metamorphosis means that you grow from pupa to larva to adult.
Yeah.
There's a graduation in the growth.
Right.
In a positive sense.
Absolutely.
But if you snatch ballot boxes in 1983 or 1982, and you are still snatching it in 2003, or 2019, or 2015, or 2011, is that growth? Is that the metamorphosis we should be celebrating? On
a lighter note, Laddie, the ballot boxes in the 80s were wooden boxes.
They're very difficult to carry. You're better than just 2-3 people to carry.
Okay, now
these other ones are more lightweight. Yeah, and they're transparent. They're much lighter.
Easier to carry even now.
But let's not make light of what is otherwise a very serious situation, because again, because this speaks to what Ken mentioned at the start, which is the issue of process. And if you see incremental changes over time, then whether it's evolution you use or metamorphosis you use, you see, growth and development. I just wanted to ask you, Ken, from what you said thus far, but I don't want to take that, simply at face value, that we haven't witnessed that incremental value, because if indeed we haven't, then we really have a big problem. But the fact that today we are talking of electronic transmission and the lack thereof, the fact that, there's less voter inducement, that more young people came out to participate in the election, that, the process, while there are parts of it that were not fulfilled, that the process largely was better than we, by the figures we have from the various CSOs and so on, the figures show a substantial, as the lawyers would say, compliance with the processes that were put in place. So do you agree with that? Did you see that?
Definitely. Well, there is an incremental value added. There's no doubt about that. And I'll take us back to 2007. Remember that the voter register in 1999, then 2003, up until 2007, had names like Michael Jackson, now voter register, Mike Tyson,
yes,
some exotic names were there, until we introduced the DDC, Direct Data Capture Machine. That helped to clean up the voter register, because that's actually the takeoff point for rigging. When you have a faulty voter register, rigging is as simple as ABC. So we've been able to introduce technology, and we're advancing in that calibration of introduction of technology. From DDC now, we went to card reader, which means on the day of election, a machine had to certify that you are actually the true owner of this card and that this is who you are. Now we are graduated to BVAS, which not only tells that you are the true identity of who you claim, but also is capable of transmitting results. The very fact that we are at the juncture where we are asking why was the result not transmitted real-time online as promised shows that, and these are the questions we didn't ask before because they were not, it was never promised before. That technology was never there before. So it tells you that we have made advancement. But that advancement, we must also make it work. It's not working. Why people, there's a rage out there and anger and red eye everywhere is that they feel that all that were promised were not kept. And it's because of that promise and because of the infusion of technology into the process that raised the consciousness of a new generation of voters, the younger generation. They now believe that votes will count this time. The same people, the same age bracket, are now go out there on the street, they are raging, they are raving, they are cursing, and they are saying that the votes are not counting after all the promises, after all the infusion of technology, and that is should get us worried, and even much more the Independent National Electoral Commission, because that's the agency of government that is certified, certificated, licensed by law to organize free and fair, credible and verifiable elections. Not just organize elections for us. This election must be free, fair, and must be seen to be free and fair, credible, and must be verifiable. Because you said you will transmit this result, which means every polling unit result will be on your server. Now, when Party A will now tally all that were transmitted by their agents and compare with what was declared at the end of the day. So we have a long journey, actually, in this electoral process. Even if the result comes out tomorrow, on Thursday, or wherever, I'm telling you, it's just the beginning of yet another journey, this time in the direction of the judiciary.
You know, I'd like us to stay with the process, as you talked about it earlier. You cited the process that involves.
Sorry, let me just put you on pause there because the results of the election in Imo State have just been sent in to us. The final results indicate that the Labour Party has won the presidential election in Imo State. It polled 352,904 votes to beat all the other parties in the Imo elections. Other parties that were in the elections were the APC, which scored 66,171 votes. The PDP scored 30,044 votes, and the NNPP 1,536 votes. Let me take that again. The Labour Party's presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, has won the presidential election in Imo State. He polled a total of 352,904 votes to beat the presidential candidate of the APC in the election. The presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, scored 66,171 votes in Imo State, while the presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, scored 30,044 votes in Imo State. The NNPP's Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso scored 1,536 votes. So the results there of the election, the presidential election in Imo State.
More to come. That leaves us with
12 now.
12
I think,
more to go.
sorry, 11 actually.
11 more
It's 11 states now.
Okay. Well, the votes are counting.
And they are coming.
No, the votes are
The votes are
Don't say
coming
they are counting.
because Ken's contention is that there's contention over whether they are counting.
Yes.
But then we have to count them. Anyway,
Well, we are not counting, we are announcing.
Exactly. I wanted to, you've spoken to the electorate, the role the electorate needed to play, and you've also brought in the angle of the vote buyer, vote seller, and all of that. My question to you now is, you've spoken about various stakeholders. The voter, which is the electorate, is just one category of stakeholders in the electoral process. Which other ones, other than INEC, have or were supposed to play a role that, as from what you can see, didn't quite play that role. That has also, one way or the other, not made it the way we want it to be.
The political parties ought to play their role in voter education. The media must play its role in educating the public and taking them through the processes before, during, and even after elections. The civil society organizations also should play their role. These are critical stakeholders. But I will still single out the media. Okay, that's my own fraternity. And we have not played our role in an excellent manner. And I will say it, I say it with every sense of responsibility, being a stakeholder in the media. And I was telling somebody, a colleague of mine this morning, that the media has become partisan media reporting partisan politics. You can see the fractured media taking sides based on, is it ownership, even ethnic divides? Those things, those primordial sentiments and lines, strictures that govern politics and politicians are beginning to govern the space of the media. And it shouldn't be so. We should be aloof, distant from the politicians, because that's the only way you can actually bring them to account to the public. If you begin to jump into the cesspit with the same person you are supposed to correct, you don't have that moral badge anymore to correct the person. And you won't even see clearly. The media is no longer seeing clearly the way they should see, because the media is also beclouded by who owns us. Who pays the person that pays the piper calls the tune every day and any day. So I think the media should also show themselves as independent media